It worked. Okay. So I wanted to watch this video about the history of the Russia and Ukraine conflict by Valuetainment. Yeah, I want to know more about more about the history of what happened, because it seems like there's a lot going on.
So there's a lot of worry about Russia, Ukraine, World War III, because Biden said, hey, you can use long-range missiles.
Right. This is old. This is from 2 months ago. I like how from 2 months ago it's old, and it's considered old, and we're talking about Biden still. It was just 2 months
against
ago.
Russia, and then Ukraine, they did, and then Putin comes out and sends the hypersonic missiles without any nuclear weapons in it. But if he did, what does that look like? How quickly does it go? And the argument is very weird, because both...
The problem is there's like so many... There's so much going on, and there's so many conflicting accounts of what's happening, right? Like, there's people saying that there are certain reasons that Russia attacked. There are other reasons that are basically saying that Russia's just full evil, just decided to go like full on like and like attack. And then there's people that are saying like that there were some things going on in Ukraine. I was looking into it today, and I found there was so much conflicting info that I think the only thing really that you can look at is like, what are their motives? Like, what are the motives of like each of the countries? And we'll see. We'll think about it, right?
Like, well, you know, Russia didn't hold their end of their bargain when we, in 1991, the Budapest Agreement, when we gave them the 1,700 nuclear weapons that were left in Ukraine, we said we will give this back over to you as long as you no longer attack us and you give us security.
Because I don't think the situation is that clear cut. Like, I feel like there's a lot of people, and that have an opinion on this, and the opinion I've seen from most people is like, Russia attacked Ukraine. That's bad, and they are just going in there because they are greedy and they want to take it over. And maybe that's true. But it's like, I want to know what other reasons there could be behind it. Because, I mean, you got to be real, like, everyone's fucking around all the time. Russia's fucking around. America's fucking around. European Union's fucking around. Everyone is doing like this freaking bullshit behind the scenes, like messing with each other, like through non-direct actions. And
didn't hold their end
there
of their
must
bargain,
be some
but
shit
then
that happened,
the other side
you
is
know?
like, but wait a minute, you also told us you're never going to join NATO, but now you are. But to fully understand this, we have to, one, see the people that say, no, Putin's the reason to blame. It's all his fault. We have to see their arguments. And no, NATO and Ukraine is the reason. And then we also got to look at the timeline of what the history looks like, what events took place, what different negotiations happened in the past.
That's
and then
exactly
when you look
what
at
I
this,
want
you're
to
kind
know.
of like, whoa, I don't know if I agree with those guys. And I didn't know about this. We're going to talk about all that stuff today.
I have yet to hear justify a reasonable reason for it. The excuse Tucker Carlson and others would give is we should respect Russia's decision. Wait, was that? Are you sure that's what Tucker said? That they have nukes, therefore we should just let them do it? Is that what you're saying? That doesn't sound like something Tucker would say. Did he really say that?
If you value out of this video, give it a
Did I
thumbs up
see
and
the
subscribe to the
interview?
channel. Keep in mind, we're going to go.
I'm not gonna lie. I was trying to watch it today, and I fell asleep.
Through a timeline on what happened. Some of the stuff we'll talk about. You'll agree with some of the stuff
It was
you
like
won't.
this.
But
It was like this. It was like this. They sat down, and Putin was like, "Do you know about history of Russia?" And Tucker was like, "No, tell me." And he was like, "Okay. Many years ago," and then like he just went into like this long history thing. I was like, oh, fuck. In the very beginning, there was Russia, and I was like, oh no. I freaking fell asleep petting my cat. I'm not gonna lie.
That's the whole purpose of this commentary. We'll even look at the map of how Russia grew the last 300-400 years.
I probably should watch it though. I probably should watch it, but that shit is long. It's like 3 hours or something. It's really long, you know?
1600s, and what they owned, what they lost, what happened, all of that stuff will go through it as well. But to go back through history, the most important thing to know is the fact that most of modern Ukraine was under Russia or Soviet control roughly 337 years from 1667 to 1991, and approximately 90.76% of modern Ukraine history was under Russian or Soviet control. We're talking 91%, give or take. However, on December 1st, 1991, over 90% of Ukrainians voted for independence in a nationwide referendum reflecting widespread domestic support. And keep in mind, this is the time where Ronald Reagan, you hear the stories about the fact that, hey, Russia, look at you. Everybody drives the same car. They live in the same apartment. There's no competition. Nothing's taking place. Here's what you need to be doing. And there was an NGO that Reagan was one of the founders, I think, in 1983, called the National Endowment for Democracy, that was started in early 80s. And they're going on saying free speech, free market, civil society, rule of law. Gorbachev was watching saying, maybe it's not a bad idea. And in 1990, Gorbachev accepted Germany's reunification and its continued membership in NATO under the explicit condition that NATO would not expand past Germany. NATO says, you don't have to worry about it, even to the point that U.S. Secretary of State Jim Baker, German Chancellor Helmut Kohl, and Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher made...
And then we said, just kidding.
Verbal assurances, I give you my word, verbal assurances to Mikhail Gorbachev in February of 1990. Baker was famously known for saying that NATO would move not 1 inch eastward, not 1 inch eastward beyond Germany. So imagine you're Russia, you're Gorbachev, we made a great deal. Hey guys, let's make this work, totally fine. We're willing to accept capitalism. We're willing to accept some of the...
countries have a free will. Well, I mean, we don't have to let them join NATO. Right? Like if you are NATO, and as NATO, you're saying we're not gonna expand eastward. And then another country goes, "Can I join NATO?" And you're like, "Sure." That's not really like the free will of the country. It's like they don't have a right to join NATO.
Democracy, Western way of living, we'll take it, but let's make a deal. Yeah, listen, you ain't got to worry about it. We're going to be okay. This is what we're going to do. And then later on, it changed. Now, keep this in mind. When you're saying not 1 inch eastward, look at the map now.
Didn't Russia try to join NATO? I swear Russia tried to join NATO at one point. And then I feel like they were like, how about us? Can we join NATO? And we were like, nah. Like, dude.
1 inch eastward of Germany. Look who now they expanded to. What do you think you're going to be thinking about if you're Russia? What's Russia's priority? Russia. So you just made a deal, and then you're looking at this map saying, hey guys, what the hell are you doing? Well, what happened to Margaret Thatcher, Jim Baker? What happened to Kohl? What happened to the German chancellor? All these...
Okay, guys, you want to know what I think? Like, this is my hypothesis. Okay, I haven't finished the video yet. But I'm willing to bet. I am willing to bet that this is literally what is going on. You ready?
I remember this dude saying that Russia tried multiple times, but every president they asked said they didn't have the power for it to happen.
I'm pretty sure this is what's happening. There's a bunch of companies that like make a lot of money from war. And they're like, you know what makes a lot of money is war. Let's just keep doing it. I remember this dude saying that Russia tried multiple times, but every president they asked said they didn't have the power for it to happen. Dude, I really think that there's going to be like, basically if you follow the money, there's going to be some organization or some kind of something that sells guns or some weapons, and they have an interest in there being perpetual war.
Promises. What is this all about? right? So this is where it's like, well, maybe these guys are not keeping their word. Now, let's go back again, 1991.
That's
the Chicken Kiev speech refers to an address by President Bush, George H.W. Bush, on August 1st, 91, said to Supreme Soviet Union of the Ukrainian SSR in Kiev. In the speech, Bush cautioned against suicidal nationalism. Hey, guys, Ukraine, it's a suicide. If you want to kind of talk about Ukrainian nationalism, you've been part of these guys for all these years, but this is a suicide mission you're on. You sure you want to do this? You don't want to do it. We want to do it. Are you positive? We want to do it. It's a suicide mission you're on. They're going to come after eventually. No, we're going to...
NATO-affiliated countries, seen as a first step to joining NATO, but they never formally submitted a bid to join NATO because of disagreements/tensions with existing members. To join NATO, you have to submit a bid to join, and
every member has to accept it unanimously. Thank you, Fiddy Squiggly. Thank you.
To do it. That's the warning that Bush gave to them at that time. And I keep in mind, the timing of this is interesting because this is August 1st, 91, and then December 1st, 91, 3 months later, over 90% of Ukrainians voted. So think about the timing. He's saying, you may not want to do this, this whole nationalism, because in Ukraine at the time, they had the Azov Battalion, which part of it,
weren't those the Nazi dudes?
Bill that was the Nazi symbol with the wolf sign. We've seen these before in documentaries. He's saying, guys, you're making a mistake. Do not.
I haven't seen them in documentaries. Are they like actually like literal Nazis? Like for realsies? They're for realsies Nazis. Okay.
Do this. He's warning them. Shortly after that,
they're not actually Nazis. The media just calls them that.
Talking exactly 19 days later, on December 20th, Boris Yeltsin in 91 writes a letter after the dissolution of Soviet Union. He sent a letter to NATO suggesting that Russia was open to the idea of joining the alliance. Think about this. Russia is open to joining the alliance. Yeltsin framed the request as part of Russia's effort to foster closer relations with the West and to establish itself as a democratic nation. Now, the obvious question will be, what did NATO say? Well, NATO is not going to respond to them. They didn't. They're like, oh, okay, cool. That's nice of you to want to do this. But if we cannot do this, we built NATO specifically to go against you. If you're not join us, now we're not needed.
Wait, what? Like, actually?
If we're not needed, what are we going to do with military-industrial complex? That's a big business model, making billions of dollars. Peace is not a good business model if you're selling weapons. Why would we want peace? Don't tell anybody this. Let's just kind of let this thing go. We know Yeltsin's trying to get some peace stuff going over here. No. NATO was shut down. Then what happens? A lot of people didn't want that. Now, keep in mind when 1991 was going on.
That's true. Like, what's the point? Is it like, what is the point of, if Russia joins NATO, what's the point of NATO?
That whole nuclear weapons that we talk about that Ukraine has.
Isn't that what NATO is for? Is to fight Russia?
Leads to the Budapest Memorandum 1994, in which Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons in exchange for security guarantees from Russia, UK, and US. And at the time, when Ukraine declared independence of Soviet Union in 1999, it inherited the world's third largest nuclear arsenal, 1,700 nuclear warheads for intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, and strategic bombers. They gave it back. They just said, make sure you protect us. Again, this is the part where they go back and forth.
Okay, hold on. Wait. What happened?
Nuclear warheads for intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, and strategic bombers. They gave it back. They just said, make sure you protect us. Again, this is the part where they go back and forth. Fast forward 2 years later, Ukraine writes their first post-Soviet constitution in 96 with the help of US. Then again in 2000, similar to what Yeltsin said, 9 years prior to that, Putin comes out and says, look, in an interview with BBC, they would consider joining NATO if it were treated as an equal partner. However, this was more of a rhetorical statement to gauge NATO's willingness to engage with Russia on equal terms rather than a formal proposal. Now, here's what's interesting. There's a clip of Tucker interviewing Putin where Putin explains, when Clinton was here right next door, I asked him, I said, hey, what do you think about the idea of us joining NATO? He said, that's an interesting idea. Let me talk to my team. Then they go and he talks to his team and they come back and says, no, not right now. Maybe later on. That's a conversation that took place between Clinton and Putin that he talked about on Tucker. So even though he may have been interested, NATO was not interested in having Russia.
I mean, that's just like his point of view, right? Is that actually confirmed?
To join NATO. Why? It's a fair question for you to ask. Why wouldn't they want him to join NATO? Would it eliminate the idea of NATO? What would happen there? Again, moving along with the timeline. This is 2000. He's asking to join NATO. Then 9/11 happens, which is a year and a half later. When that takes place, Putin comes out publicly being one of the first leaders to give solidarity and willingness to cooperate with U.S. in combating terrorism. He was reportedly the first leader to call President Bush on the day of attacks, expressing condolences and the support, emphasized that Russia understood the pain of terror, referencing Russia's own experiences with terrorist attacks, particularly in Chechnya, but Putin condemned the attacks as a barbaric act of terrorism against innocent people and offered Russian solidarity with the American people. Then 2 months later, November of 2001, he supports the U.S. in Afghanistan. Putin backed the U.S.-led military intervention in Afghanistan to dismantle al-Qaeda and Taliban. Russia provided crucial logistic assistance, including opening Russian airspace for U.S. and NATO flights. Think about that. Most people forgot that. That's 23 years ago they're sitting there saying, hey, we know you guys are doing this. Whatever you need, we're here to help you. Think America, Russia, whatever you need, we're helping you in NATO. We don't hear this story often when that took place, when they're helping Afghanistan, right? Facilitating the use of Central Asian bases by U.S. forces, sharing intelligence on Afghanistan terrorist networks. Putin's never been a fan of terrorist organizations, and he's openly described terrorism as a common enemy of both Russia and the U.S., signaling a shared commitment to global counterterrorism. This is good. This is 23 years ago. So at this time, November 2001, America's like, oh, okay, he's helping us out. Afghanistan, this was cool. We're getting the support. 2 years later, it's like, listen, guys, what's the story with this Iraq war? What are you guys doing with the Iraq war? I'm not with it. Invasion of Iraq, seeing it as a destabilizing and outside the scope of.
Yeah, that was
NATO is for destroying communism. The only two rules to become a member nation is no land disputes and no ongoing wars.
But like,
currently, I'd like NATO to be a fuck China party, but it is what it is.
Russia's not even communist though. Not anymore.
Counterterrorism. Now he's not showing support to some of the stuff that's going on.
Yeah, that was kind of sus, dude. The fucking yeah, that was a shit show. I agree. 50 squiggly.
And
that
how
was
much did
something
Iraq
else.
cost us? How much money? How many troops died? Then the color revolutions, the U.S. support for pro-democracy movements in former Soviet states such as Ukraine, Georgia, heightened Putin's suspicion of Western intentions. Like, wait a minute, guys, what are we doing? I'll give you support, but don't think for a moment I'm naive. What are we doing here? I'm not with this, and I'm not with this. Don't blindly take my support that you can now do anything, and I'll back you up. And in NATO expansion, even more going into Eastern Europe. Guys, at this point, we have a problem. You're not showing that you want peace here. You're showing that you want to paint me as an enemy, and how much more can I go sitting here wanting to make things good with you guys, but you guys keep pushing the envelope. Now this leads to 2004, 2005 Orange Revolution.
So wait, I have a question. Do people call this guy a Russia shill? Just like Tucker?
You may have seen this documentary before. I think Oliver Stone did a good documentary on this. Protests in Ukraine were sparked by widespread allegations of electoral fraud during the 2004 presidential election, where Viktor Yanukovych was initially declared the winner over Viktor Yushchenko, but twice this happened, 04 and 14. However, demonstrations, civil disobedience.
Be a real democracy. Life is a long trip on a short bus, and I too ride upon it.
Be a real democracy? Like you mean like the other European countries? Like the ones that if you make mean memes, they lock you up? You mean like that? Real democracy? Yeah, like Romania. Yeah, like overthrowing the election, we call it nullifying the election, like that kind of democracy.
Civil resistance, strike actions, revolt ordered by the Supreme Court of Ukraine that Viktor Yushchenko declared winner. At the same time, who had their hands on this? Couple NGOs. One of them was the National Endowment for Democracy, the NED, and the other one was the Open Society Foundation, which you know who that's a part of, George Soros. So it gets and the other one was the Open Society Foundation, which you know who that's a part of, George Soros. So it gets a little bit tricky here. Wait a minute, this guy wins, but you're not happy with him.
Uh-oh.
because this guy had no desire. Viktor Yanukovych, who had a decent relationship with Putin, had no desire to be part of NATO. And they're like, no, we don't want that. We want Ukraine to be part of NATO. Now imagine you're Putin. Wait a minute. All these promises, you want me to sit here? You just crossed the line. We now officially have a problem. That's why his motives are where they're at. Now, at the end of this 2008, 2012, Putin steps down. Dmitry Medvedev comes in because at the time they only had a two-term. Of course, later on it changes. But he steps down and tens of thousands of people participated in the 2011, 2012 Russian protests, also known as the Snow Revolution. Protests took place across major cities like Moscow, St. Petersburg, with chants like Russia without Putin and United Russia is the party of crooks and thieves. Now, the Bolotnaya Square
Thank you, Brother Red Rock.
protests in Moscow were among the largest since the 1990s. Now, here's where it gets tricky. So these guys are protesting to not be for Putin, right? And in America, NGOs can pay people to protest. We don't have a law against that. It happens all the time. And it's a regular thing. Open Society's been behind it. Putin says, wait a minute, you guys want to pay these guys? This is allegedly.
Wait, what?
We can think Open Society's NGOs can pay people to protest. We don't have a law against that. It happens all the time. And it's a regular thing. Open Society's been behind it. Putin says, wait a minute, you guys want to pay these guys? This is allegedly, and some people can verify this, you guys are getting paid to protest against me, so you make me look like an idiot in Russia?
Wait, wait, hold on. The US was doing paid protests in Russia?
No problem. I'm going to come back in and I'm going to make sure anybody that's taking money from any NGO, whether it's the National Endowment for Democracy or it's a USA, the United States Agency for International Development, anybody that's taking money from NGO, you have to declare it.
Guys, this video was from 2 months ago, okay?
To everybody. You can't just go out there and take the money and fool the average Russian voter, not realizing what's really going on. By the way, you may or may not agree with whatever Putin's doing, but are you
This is what I was saying, by the way, about all the meddling. You know, and like, you know, granted, everyone does this, right? Everybody's meddling with each other's shit. Right. But what I was saying is that the government is not guys, don't get me wrong. I love America. America's the best, but you have to admit that some of the people in the government are fucking dickheads.
NGOs paying people to be actors, going outside, making a lot of ruckus, confusing the American people, and the media comes and says, oh, look, they're all against the president. They're all against the president. Look at all this stuff. Do you want to be manipulated? Do you want the American people to be manipulated? Because it happens in America all the time. He sits there and says, I'm not with the guys. You're not doing that. I think I need to come back. Now, imagine during this time, 2008, 2012, Putin's watching everything that's going on around the world.
So wait, hold on. Putin left, and then he was like, you guys fucking suck. I'm coming back. Is that what happened?
You have a lot of time, right? It's like, wait a minute, what's going on over here? What's going on over there? What is all this stuff? He's done, right? Assuming he's done. And he sees the global uprisings, Arab Springs, 2010, 2011. Well, what happened to Middle East leaders like Ben Ali from Tunisia, Mubarak from Egypt, or Gaddafi, Libya? Even in the documentary Putin's Revenge, Julia Loaf, who is part of that documentary, says that Putin is said to have been deeply affected by the way Muammar Gaddafi was killed. He watched a video of a bloodied Gaddafi dragged from his bunker, sodomized and shot over and over and over. Think about it, he's watching. It's like, wait a minute, what are they doing to a guy like this over and over? And he thinks he is doing everything to avoid a similar fate. He's doing the opposite. This is the report that's being given by Julia. He's watching all this stuff.
Thank you, Zay. Thank you so much for that Prime. Thank you.
To a guy like this over and over, and he thinks he is doing everything to avoid a similar fate. He's doing the opposite. This is the report that's being given by Julia. He's watching all the stuff taking place. When he got killed, Gaddafi, it was October 20th, 2011. So this is the 4-year span that he's not running Russia. And he's saying, this is kind of weird. They went after Saleh.
Thanks so much for the Prime, Terror Squid. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
So this is the 4-year span that he's not running Russia.
Thank you. Thank you, dog. Thank you for the bits. Thank you.
It was October 20th, 2011. So this is the 4-year span that he's not running Russia. And he's saying, this is kind of weird. They went after Saleh from Yemen. Then he saw the color revolutions with what happened with Georgia. He's saying all these post-revolution, Orange Revolution, then overthrows, all these things that's going on. This is influencing him to sit there and say, wait a minute, the fear of Western influence. Saw these moments as U.S.-led effort to destabilize authority.
50 Squiggly says, I'd say 80% of the people in the government are dickheads. I'm the type of person who thinks it does take a certain psychopath to be in the government, however. Yeah, you mean like like elected officials, right? 80%. The thing is, man, the thing is, the people that should be in the government do not want to be in the government. That's kind of how it is.
Authoritarian regimes, he knows what he is. It's not like he's debating it. He knows what he is himself. Domestic parallels with Russian protests shared traits with these uprisings that is being paid by NGOs. All of this influences him to say, you know, like, look, whether he wanted to come back all along or not, nobody knows.
That's why I'm really happy for my boy Dan, because I don't think he actually wants to do it. I think he's doing it because he was asked to do it, and he basically is like, I can't justify saying no. Like, because I've been saying all this shit about the government and about how they suck. And if I say no, then I'm basically I'm a part of it, right? I'm a part of the problem. So that's why he's dropping a lot to like actually like join the what was he again? He was the assistant director of the FBI.
He knows that, but all of this says, hey, no, listen, Dmitry, you're a good guy, but I think you're maybe a little bit of a pushover. This is Russia. I'm going to come back and...
No, not Dan Crenshaw. Fuck that guy. No, Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino is my Oshi. And I'm going to be very fucking sad because his show is going to be gone. And I'm sad because that's my favorite show.
Defend mother. This is my place. There's
cutesy time is truly over. it's truly over.
There's no way I'm going to let this happen to Russia. I'm coming back to clean house.
He graduated.
And that influenced him to come back. Now, right after Gaddafi dies, October 20th, 2011, month and a half later, December 4th, 2011, Putin wins. When he wins, he's going to come back and be the president. Hillary Clinton gets out there and says the following. In that time, says, as Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton criticized Russia's parliamentary elections, calling them neither free nor fair, which reportedly angered Putin. So he comes back and there's a few things he does immediately. Says, number one, he cracked down on dissent, restricted NGOs, used anti-Western rhetoric to undermine opposition. Putin blamed protests on foreign interference, particularly from US, and accused Western-funded NGOs of inciting unrest. A law passed in 2012.
I'm not gonna lie, that sounds like something that they would do.
Requiring NGOs receiving foreign funding to register as foreign agents. Think about it.
I mean, guys, there's a lot of people accusing America of doing that kind of stuff. It's kind of a lot of people, actually.
Got it. You're getting money from an NGO. You have to come out and say, guys, I'm a foreign agent. If you didn't, you're breaking the law.
Wait, what happened?
Money giving foreign funding to register as foreign agents. Think about it. You're getting money from an NGO. You have to come out and say, guys, I'm a foreign agent. If you didn't, you're breaking the law.
Wait, that seems like it makes sense. That like if you're protesting, but you get paid by another country to protest, all you have to do is say, yeah, I got paid by another country to protest. You just have to like declare it. It seems that seems like it makes sense.
Very weird that you need to know about. February of 2008, the current CIA director under Biden, William J. Burns, at the time was a U.S. ambassador to Russia, authored a confidential cable titled Niet means Niet, Russia's NATO enlargement red lines. In this document, the current CIA director,
we are watching a video about the history of Ukraine and Russia because of the Zelensky situation.
Ambassador to Russia, he conveyed Russia's strong opposition to NATO's eastward expansion, particularly regarding Ukraine and Georgia. He highlighted that Russia's officials viewed such enlargement as a potential military threat and a violation of their security interests. Burns warned that pursuing NATO membership for Ukraine could lead to an internal divisions, violence, or even civil war, potentially compelling Russia to intervene. This is February of 2008. Right now we're what? November of 2024. 16 years ago, current CIA director, former ambassador of Russia, saying, guys, what are we doing? What are
I just realized, guys, I can't buy an AK now because then everyone will call me a Russian shill.
What are we doing? 16 years ago, this guy knew what was going to take place. And he's given a warning to U.S. And they're like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. And by the way, you know who was president in 08? Obama. 1 month after inauguration, saying, don't mess with these guys. It could backfire on us. Boom. Now.
Buy a Brandon Herrera AK with the AK-50.
Many will say we're on the brink of World War III. If one of those hypersonic weapons, their missiles they're sending has a nuclear bomb in it, guess what happens then? Game changer, right? Now, you remember in 2004, that whole protesting that took place when the two victors were running, Yushchenko, who wanted Ukraine to be part of NATO, and the other victor, which was Viktor Yanukovych, who was like, no, we don't need to be part of NATO. I'm gonna have a better relationship with Putin. Guess what? Yushchenko becomes president from 2005 to 2010 for Ukraine. This is the third president of Ukraine. Then the other victor, who's kind of like, nah, no interest in
resubscribe time with
Hunter
an ad
Percival,
immediately
thank
as
you
my
for the
sub
prime.
ends,
Thank
lol.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
to 2010 for Ukraine. This is the third president of Ukraine. Then the other victor, who's kind of like, nah, I have no interest in being part of Ukraine. He then becomes president. 2010 to 2014, he now is the president. However, protesting in Ukraine gets so bad in November of 2013 after Yanukovych refused to sign an EU association agreement favoring closer ties with Russia. Many Ukrainians, especially in the west and center of the country, supported EU integration as a pathway to economic reform, democratic governance, and escape in Russia's influence. Anger at Yanukovych's perceived corruption and authoritarian.
Thank you so much for the prime, Urchinzilla. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
An escape in Russia's influence, anger at Yanukovych's perceived corruption and authoritarianism drove public discontent. It was so nasty that he had to leave, and it was no longer safe being in Ukraine. I believe he escaped to Russia, if I'm not mistaken. So if you keep in mind, while this has taken place, the West...
Thank you so much for the prime, Nightshade. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you so much.
I believe he escaped to Russia, if I'm not mistaken. So if you keep in mind, while this has taken place, the West is saying, oh, no, this is all organic. It's what these people want. They want this. They want to join NATO. They want a better relationship with EU. They don't want to have anything to do with Russia. Putin saying, no, these people...
I'm not really a fan of... I'm not like a huge simp of either Ukraine or Russia. I care about America and American citizens. That's my whole take on this whole thing.
People are not real. They're getting paid. And so the lady from the front...
I want whatever's best for America.
line documentary done, Putin's Revenge, she went on the streets asking the people in Ukraine who were...
Like, I'm gonna be real. If, like, becoming friends with Russia is better for America and, like, better economic relationships and political relationships with Russia, like, I think that would be a good thing, honestly. If we could actually be, like, friends with them rather than enemies. Like, I think that would be better, obviously.
Protesting, hey, did somebody pay you? And you know what many of them said? Yes, we were paid. She has nothing to do with this. She's frontline. PBS doing a documentary, Putin's Revenge. No, a lot of these guys were paid by NGOs to go out there and make it seem like they wanted the other guy. This is your part where you get to pick and choose and believe who you want to believe. Some say, no wonder this happened. US and NGOs are being involved to make sure there's a fall because they don't want more peace there, because they want a guy that wants to join NATO because we need a bigger enemy to keep going after them. This is business for us, right? Again, this is all allegedly. You get to pick and choose which argument you want to believe.
So the only thing you can trust, I said this before, the only thing you can trust is motive. You have to think about what each side actually wants out of a thing, and that's the only thing that you know is the truth.
The next
intentions, exactly. Intentions and motives is the only thing that you can really believe. Because people are gonna lie regardless, like on both sides. Like everyone's gonna bullshit. Everyone's gonna bullshit to make their side sound better. All you have to do is follow the motive and the money.
8 years, you know what happens? It's the back and forth of Russia against NATO and each finding ways to piss the other one off. And this happens for 8 years. NATO expands its presence in Eastern Europe, which is Poland, Estonia, Latvia, military exercises. NATO's doing these large-scale military exercises, such as Defender Europe or Trident Juncture. At the same time, Russia's responding and doing its own military exercises. The Zapad exercises, showing them the fact that, hey, we're ready for simulating large-scale conflict with NATO forces. Then there's allegations allegations of cyber attacks from Russia to NATO members such as Ukraine and others, like the NotPetya attack of 2017, and then disinformation campaigns from both sides. Meanwhile, Ukraine growing NATO aspirations, declared NATO membership as a strategic goal in 2019. Again, can you imagine? It's like, wait a minute, what are you guys doing here, right? Enshrining it in its constitution, NATO provided increased financial and military assistance to Ukraine. Russia viewed NATO's growing relationship with Ukraine as a direct threat to its security, citing NATO's 2008 Bucharest summit declaration that Ukraine and Georgia would eventually join the alliance. This keeps going back and forth, and it's getting more and more heated. Again, this leads to...
Also, wait, guys, didn't Zelensky didn't he come over and like basically campaign for not Trump, against Trump? Didn't he do that? I swear to God, he did that.
2021, the military buildup near Ukraine. Russia amassed over 100,000 troops near Ukraine border in late 2021, citing security concerns, opposing NATO's continued expansion. NATO and Western leaders accused Russia of preparing for an invasion. Then this comes to December of 2021. Russia makes its demands that a guarantee Ukraine would never join NATO and removal of NATO military infrastructure from Eastern Europe. NATO rejects those demands, affirming Ukraine's right to determine its alliance. They're now backtracking on their promises that they had. And a couple months after that request, guess what happens? War. So at the end of the day, the question becomes motive. What is NATO's motive? What is US's motive?
That's what I was saying.
What is Ukraine's motive? What is Putin's motive? Everybody's motive, right? They can tell us whatever they want.
What's the intentions?
Yeah, see all over TV and news and all these experts that are speaking. But you and I have to study history for ourselves, for yourself. Say, I don't know, what is their motive? Because motive for Russia could be, if you look at this map from 1500s of what happened to Russia from then, where Fedor was there, then Boris and all these guys, all the way up, you see how much territory they got. And when you think about Ukraine was under Russian or Soviet control for 337 years, from 1667 to 1991. All right, so Russia's motive is to say what? Ukraine is really ours. What are you guys talking about? This is none of your business. This is our property. What are you doing? And then NATO's point may be, well, Yeltsin was easy to negotiate with. He was a bit of a pushover, nice guy. He was like a globalist. Maybe we could have worked with him and done some of the stuff that we wanted to do. Dmitry was kind of easier. This guy, Putin, is a true believer, and we got to get rid of this guy because he's in the way. Because if NATO and US really wanted peace, why don't you allow him to join NATO? And if you do, you put certain guidelines in place. Yes, we want to entertain you being part of NATO. Well, we need you to do boom, 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 boom.
Totally,
why don't you do that?
it.
Why isn't that conversation taking place?
They could have totally negotiated it. If they had certain problems with Russia for joining NATO, they could have totally negotiated it out. And then that would at least be like on the record, right?
Why? Is it because the people that are given the money are tied to maybe some of these military industrial complex companies that are like, wait a minute,
but it's kind of hard to say. Like, did that actually happen? Because Putin said that it happened, right? So is it like actually true?
We need a little bit of war. Are they
Clinton
trying to push Russia to get strong with BRICS? Is that a good thing for the world? I don't know. But the most important thing we have to study is motive. Last night, my dad and I are sitting there. We're talking about different countries that have been destroyed because of war. And he says, how do they rebuild these countries? How do they do it? I said, major banks come in, like a Chase, like a BlackRock. Hey, $400 billion, we'll rebuild your country at such and such. And if the country doesn't pay the money back, what do you think is the collateral? Your natural resources. The banks are going to get their money. Like, imagine if you say, hey, I need $500,000. You go to Joey, I'll give you $500,000. Based on what? Back it up based on the $1 million equity you have in your property. If you don't return $500,000 to me within a year, I own your land. Collateral, right? So these big banks are going to come in and say, oh, let's rebuild Ukraine, $400 billion. What if we can't pay back? Don't worry, we're going to get your natural resources. You got plenty. Hey, we got to get this Putin knocked out of the way. Why? Because the number one country in the world with natural resources is not us. It's Russia. $75 trillion. And there's a man in the way. You know what his name is? Putin. That guy's got to get out the way so we can go in Russia and do business. It's a lot of money. The more you and I know motives, the more we can understand why every one of these guys are presenting their...
Because everyone's fucking lying about everything. Like, the accounts of everything else is conflicted.
Argument the way they are. And then you will be responsible on whose motives you believe and whose motives you don't. But at the end of the day, history will tell us whose position was right and whose wasn't. Sometimes we have to wait a year or two and sometimes decades to find out if you were right or others were right. That takes a while until we find that out.
No, actually, who's right is whoever won. It's whoever won the actual conflict. That's who's right. Historically. Thank you for the follow, Ghost. Thank you so much. Thank you.
If you got value out of this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to find out more about the history of NATO, if you've never seen it, like what they've done, click here to watch the video. I think you're going to like the video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye.
Yeah, here, I'll link you guys. I'll link you guys the video. This guy did a video about California that I like. I've actually read a couple of his books too. I'll link it to you, the video there. I wonder if he has something about what happened recently. He did a piece on the freaking Congo thing, guys. The 70 Christians that got freaking executed in Congo. And like nobody's talking about it. He did like a podcast on it. You guys want to watch this? I think I have a video on it coming out already. Isn't there already a video coming out on it? I think we already had one. You guys want to watch it? Oh man, I don't know. Is it gonna show it? I hope it doesn't.